Hi, everybody. I'm Ralph Ben-Murgy. Welcome to Not That Kind of Rabbi. To be clear, I'm not a rabbi. I am an ordained spiritual counselor, but I'm not a rabbi. And if I was a rabbi, I wouldn't be that rabbi. I think that's the logic behind why I chose the name years back. Just came back from a spiritual retreat in Maryland in the United States. Do it every year. It's called JMR, Jewish Men's Retreat. And it's a lovely experience for a weekend. We just have a great time together. And one of the things we really concentrated on this time was gratitude. So I have been thinking about what I'm grateful for. And I'm grateful for some of the people I've met in my life. And I'm grateful for some of the experiences I've had with them. I will remind everyone, by the way, that if they have any interest in supporting this podcast, which I will admit I haven't been as on it as I would like to be in the last little while, but nonetheless, here we are. If you want to, just go to patreon.com, Patreon, patreon.com, and go to NTKR/NTKR, patreon.com/NTKR. And you can donate as little or as much as you'd like per month. And I'd love to have you as part of the family. So this brings me to this particular episode. And this episode came to me as a good thing to do because many lives ago, I was a stand-up comic for a period of time. And it was a very exciting time. It was new, fresh. You didn't do it because it was a good job. You did it because you had to. And there was a whole cast of characters who definitely made the experience what it was. And some of us have passed away. Steve Schuster, who was a dear friend, passed away a while ago. Steve Schuster, by the way, who was the son, or as people used to say to him, "Are you Wayne and Schuster's son?" It's like, well, no, they're actually, no, but I am Frank Schuster's son. So at his father, at Frank Schuster's funeral, apparently Steve got up and said, this could be the time where I say things, and many of you will want to come up here and tell really beautiful stories about my father, but this is neither the time nor the place for that kind of talk. And all the comics, of course, are laughing their heads off. And the rest of the people at the funeral are like, why did he say that? So we all kind of knew our own code of what's funny. And what I come to tonight is being able to share some memories with Rosalynne Gelade, who for a period of time was the partner of someone who was near and dear to my heart in stand-up. We worked together as stand-ups. If he didn't like something I said, he literally would pick me up and carry me around and go, Ralph. What are you doing? What are you doing? I would just accept it. But I wanted to share some memories because one of the things we say in the Jewish tradition is may his memory be a blessing. So for this episode of Not That Kind of Rabbi, we'll do that blessing. His name was Lawrence Morgenstern. And of course, being in Canadian showbiz, you're saying, who? Because as we all knew, being in Canadian showbiz is like being in the witness protection program. You were safe. No one would ever find you. But he was a real damn good and damn funny comic. So Rosalynne, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very nice and honored to meet you.
You too. And tell me, when did you first meet Lawrence?
I met Lawrence in 2006, and we got set up on a blind date through his brother-in-law, Isaac, Brenda's husband. I don't know if you remember any of the family. So set us up on a date. And at the time, I was taking minutes for condo meetings at night. So we agreed, I'll meet you at Tovely. Do you know?
Yeah, Tovely on Bathurst,
Yeah, so we met there, and I think we had a piece of pizza. And I said to him, I got to go to my meeting. I'll drop you off. And it turned out that I was doing the meeting in his condo where he lived. So I did the meeting, whatever, goodbye, goodbye. And then a couple of days later, asked me to go to another gig. So I went to Kitchener with him. And I was nervous because I didn't really know him, right? It was like only a few weeks. And I was giving everyone my address, where I'm going to be, and my phone in case you don't hear from me again or something. And had the best time. Like I fell in love with Lawrence on the stage and through cats. We had a shared love of cats. I don't know if you know that.
So the first time you saw him on stage,
Yeah,
that night when he got up there,
yeah, he killed.
What was your impression of him?
My impression was he was like one of the funniest guys I've ever met. I love humor, I thought he was one of the funniest guys I ever met. And I'll tell you, like looking back, it was one of his best shows he ever did. Like he literally brought the house down.
And I'm sure part of it was that he was thinking, oh, I like this one.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was very sweet. That night is very memorable because, like I said, it was in Kitchener and he killed. And then he came and he sat down next to me and put his arm around me. And I kind of like put my head on his shoulder. And then that was it. We started dating and lots of crazy stories. And then, oh yeah, we started dating. And then he said, do you want to move in? And I said, I'm not moving in without getting married. Very old fashioned.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. We moved in and got married.
And he'd never been married before, right?
No, he
Right.
hasn't. I was.
Right. I mean, I always wondered if Lawrence would ever get married.
Everybody wondered. Like when people found out we were getting married, people were like, what? Lawrence Morgenstern? Are you sure? Yeah.
So for people who don't know Lawrence, what was he like, 6'2" or 3"?
Yeah, like 6'2". He was like a hunk, huge.
Yeah, he was a big man.
Yeah.
And that story I told of him picking me up, he would just do that.
I can't believe he did that.
Oh yeah, I know. And at the time he was working for me. I was doing a TV show and he was one of our writers. And he wanted to do this thing. And I was like, Lawrence, no, we're not going to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, no, come on. And like,
yeah,
no.
He always wanted to do a thing.
Yeah. And I was like, no, Lawrence, we're not going to do it. And he kept pushing. And I went, okay, Lawrence, honestly, this conversation's over. We are not doing that bit. And he pretends to walk away and he comes right back very slowly. And then literally, I'm only 5'9". He literally picks me up and he's walking around with me in his arms. And he's stroking my hair going, oh, please do it. Please do the bit, please.
Oh my gosh.
And of course, I'm laughing because it's Lawrence, right?
Yeah, of course. He's very unique.
So let me tell you a Lawrence story. We'll exchange Lawrence stories.
Yeah.
So,
how did you meet Lawrence?
Well, Lawrence, I was working at Yuck Yucks. I had started on 519 Church Street when it was once a week on a Wednesday, a buck a night, as it were. And I only did like 2 or 3 shows there, and by then we'd moved into the Yorkville Yuck Yucks nightclub, and this was big. So I don't remember exactly when Lawrence showed up and all of that. I just remember that he was there.
Yeah.
And he was this really big guy. But he understood the craft. A lot of people would show up and want to be stand-ups. He got it.
Yeah.
Now, that not to say that there were some people who showed up where you thought, like our consensus was you either have it or you don't. But there was a few guys like Lou Dinos, for instance, who was one of our comics.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, Lou, when he first showed up, it was like, this guy has no idea what he's doing. He does not have it. And he just kept coming. No matter what, he kept coming. And eventually, people were laughing at stuff he did that if I tried that line, they'd just stare at me. But he had created this persona and he was funny. And Lawrence was part of that mix. So here's a Lawrence story.
Okay.
We opened a Montreal Yuck Yucks. And Jeff Silverman, who would he might still be at a business.
I met Jeff.
Yeah. So Jeff said to me, look, we got to take this sign, this yuck yuck sign, up to Montreal. So I said, I can't lift this thing myself. He says, okay,
Mhm.
take Lawrence with you, rent a van, but you have to have the van back in 24 hours or else it's going to cost us more money. I said, 24 hours to get to Montreal and back? And he said, yep. So, of course, we were making no money, zero, right? So I say, how much are you going to pay me? And I think he said, uh, 25 bucks or something, or 30 bucks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Lawrence would get 25 or 30 bucks. I don't know what it was. So Lawrence and I get in the van with this big brown yuck yuck sign and drive to Montreal. And it's the the coldest night of the year. Like, I'm not like
Mhm.
making that up. It was the
Okay.
coldest night of the year. So we get there, and I have a friend, an acting friend who I knew who was still in Montreal. So we stayed there for about 3 hours just to sort of
Mhm.
crash for a little while. And then we had to turn around and come back and drive back. Well, okay. So we're driving back, and
Who's driving, by the way?
I'm driving,
Okay.
and we smoke a joint. And
Okay.
it's now, I don't know, 6 in the morning, and it's freezing out there. And I'm really underdressed for this, and so is Lawrence. So we're driving, and we run out of gas. We literally ran out of gas, which I'd
Oh
never
my
done before
God.
or since. So we're stuck on
What?
the side of the road, and I'm freaking out. And Lawrence is freaking out way more than I'm freaking out. And I said, I don't know what we're like. There was no cell phones back then. So it's like, I
That's
don't know
right.
what we're going to do. And Lawrence goes, uh, I think I know. Okay. I'll be back. He gets out of the van
Mhm.
and just starts, there's a bridge in front of us. He just starts running up the hill to the bridge with no explanation of where he's going or why, and
Mhm.
just disappears. And I'm left sitting in
Oh
the
my
van by
God.
myself, and I'm freezing, like freezing to death. And so finally I decided, my God, like Lawrence is never coming back. He just left. And I get out of the van and I start hitchhiking on the 401. And I'm staring into these cars going like, I will you to stop. And somebody actually stops and picks me up. The
Mhm.
guy who picks me up is a policeman out of uniform on his way into work. I stink of pot, and he's
Oh
giving me a
shit.
lift, right?
Yeah.
And Lawrence has disappeared. I have no idea where he is. And the van is sitting there on the side of the road. So it ends up that Lawrence, we're at Ajax, Ontario, and it ends up that Lawrence has
Mhm.
run to a gas station and
Mhm.
phoned Jim McAleese, one of the other comics who lived in Ajax.
Mhm.
And unbeknownst to me, Jim then drives him back to the car with a can of gas. He fills it up, and Lawrence takes the van in. And I have arrived at where I'm living with these three other guys, and I just crash. I'm so burnt out and
Yeah.
exhausted by it.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where Lawrence is. And then I go to the club that night,
Yeah.
and I say, I don't know what's going on. And Jeff says, oh, no, Lawrence got the van, and he took it back. But you guys were longer than 24 hours, so I'm not going to pay you. Now, Jeff was as big as Lawrence, and I'm
I
not.
know Jeff for sure. Yeah, he's
Right.
a big guy.
So I jumped on top of him and said, if
You
you don't
did?
give me my $25, I'm going to kill you, which I couldn't do. And then Lawrence comes in and goes, what are you guys doing? And I said, first of all, you could have at least called me to tell me that you had the van. He goes, well, I
Yeah.
didn't know where you were. I'm really sorry. Don't worry about it. And that was the adventure of me and Lawrence going to
That is
Montreal.
hilarious.
Yeah.
That I have not heard that story.
Oh, listen, I mean, the running joke with Lawrence is you'd be on the road, you'd be at some city, some town somewhere, and it's overnight, and you're sitting there in the morning having, morning being 11 or 12, and
Hmm.
you're having some fries or something, and Lawrence is just staring at your plate, and you're eating, and then you go,
Oh, can I have one?
no, no, it's like this, you're going to be wanting all those fries.
You gonna
You,
finish
you,
those?
you going to finish that? I said, Lawrence. Order your own fries. He goes, no, I'm just not that hungry. Just can I just have a few? Can I take a few?
He did that
Mooch
all the
is
time.
food.
Sometimes, honest to God, he was like, I'd sit down, we'd sit down to eat, and he'd look, are you going to finish that? I haven't even started. That is
So
so funny.
what do you think made Lawrence Lawrence? Like, what made him tick?
Oh my God. Well, he was a very deep person. You know that. Very sensitive.
Hmm.
It's like very sensitive and very kind of like righteous. Lawrence never, ever said a bad word about anybody. You know, he kind of was he was very compassionate. He loved animals, very funny. Um, but you know what, Ralph? I used to make him laugh a lot
Hmm.
because I used to have like sarcastic humor. So we'd be in the kitchen or something, and I'd say something or I'd be mad about something, and I'd say it to him, and he would just like literally hunch over and start laughing, crying like that. And it's so to to avoid a fight or whatever, but it was hilarious. So, and like I said, we shared a huge love of cats together. We raised a few cats together, and yeah, it's
But
it's kind of surreal.
was he happy with his career or was he frustrated by it?
Well, at the end,
Yeah.
yeah, no, at the end, I think he was like between you and I kind of feel like he gave up on the whole scene. I feel
Hmm.
like he felt wronged by them somehow, you know? And I don't know like what happened. He had health problems.
Yeah.
He had some health problems. And I don't know, he kind of just lost his I don't know how you say it, but his reason. Like Lawrence is very, tuned into certain things. I mean, he was a loved TV, the shows, all the old shows. He loved all the old cars. He loved out anything retro. And in some ways, he liked to live in that era. I used to joke with him, we're in 2021 or 2020. So I think it was hard for him. I really think it was hard for him. And I honestly think that a lot of comics, like as a job, I think a lot of them have backup careers or backup things they're going to do either to supplement and or take over one day, because comedy is not a longevity career by any means. So
And he didn't have that?
he tried, well, one thing he did have, he tried, like he was always coming up with a new game show. I don't know if you know that, but oh my God, always coming up with a new game show. So nothing, ever took off. Lawrence was like more, I'd say, an ideas guy as opposed to implementation.
Yeah.
He came up with the ideas, and then it was up to, he wanted to be part of the implementation, but he didn't realize his strength was much more with the ideas.
Yeah. He was 30,000 feet.
100%.
He couldn't do
And
so I'm a showrunner and this is how it's going to go.
yeah, yeah. So I just thinking, I don't know. I just like, I hope he's okay now, wherever he is. I just pray to God that he's okay. And I don't think Lawrence, like his sister Brenda said to me, he didn't have a grudge against anyone. He never said a bad word about anybody. And he just lived. He just wanted to be left alone. Like that's the truth,
Hmm.
you know? I mean, like not me, be me being his family and whatever, but he wasn't a big social person.
No,
I was more
no.
social than him.
When we were comics, he was one of those guys who was in his apartment until it was time to go and be at Yucks and be on stage.
Exactly. And then after the show, some guys might go out drinking. He's back in his apartment.
Yeah, yeah. He was a
Yeah.
loner that way. You know,
Yeah, he was.
yeah, the other thing about him is he was a very big presence. So sometimes people would think you could say certain things to him and that it wouldn't matter, he wouldn't care. But you could really easily hurt his feelings.
That's what I mean. He was very, very sensitive. People
Yeah.
didn't realize that about him.
But then you'd see him change that because his feelings had been hurt. You'd
Yeah.
think, oh, I didn't mean to hurt him. Because if a heckler went at him, he could take him apart, like
Yeah.
the guy would have wished he'd never said a thing. because Lawrence knew how to take a guy apart. So you figured, he had a rough and tumble. I mean, what he also once Mark Breslin had this idea pretty early on at Yucks that we should try an improv night because Second City had all the improv people and we were all the
Yeah.
stand-up people. So he said, "Why don't we try it?" And I'd come from acting, so he said, "You do it. Let's see how it goes." And I was like, "Okay, I'll try it." But these guys, they have no training in this. So I try to do a theater game with them on a Sunday night when there's hardly anyone in the audience. One guy comes out and you say, "Hey, your head's on fire." And no, it isn't. And he's like, "Okay, you have to say, yes, it is. That's the only way this keeps going." So then Lawrence backstage and he's like, "Don't worry, I'll be fine. I know what to do. It's all good. Don't worry, it's all fine." We're up there doing something, and he comes out and he just stands there and he's just waiting to top us with a better line. He's still a
Yeah.
stand-up. And
Yeah.
the night's over. It's a disaster. And he walks up to me and goes, "I don't know. I thought that went pretty well. I thought it was pretty good." So did you hear that one I did about the fire truck? That was good. It's like, "Lawrence, we weren't trying out lines. We're supposed to be in a scene." "Oh,
That is so funny.
Mr. Art. Sorry, Mr. Art."
That's it. That's Lawrence. That's
Yeah.
exactly him. He always liked to do his own thing,
Yeah.
and his second language that he had,
Yeah.
different words for different things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You had to
So,
learn that if you want to hang around him.
so how long were you guys married?
We were married for 12 years.
12 years.
We were just recently separated. Well, recently it was like a year or two, year and a half, I think, when he passed away. But we were talking and everything.
Right. But you were separated at that point.
Yeah.
So that must have been hard in terms of
Yeah.
for you to see. Was he in decline at that point? Or did it happen after?
No, he was already in decline. Well, no, he wasn't sick. That's what you mean.
Yeah.
No,
No.
he wasn't sick. No, he got sick. It's like a year and a half afterwards.
And what did he
Yeah.
have? I never really knew what happened.
Well, so it was like an infection due to diabetes,
Okay.
and it kind of got infected. And see, that wasn't the problem. He got infected and he was really sick for a while in ICU, but then he was okay. So they saved him, and then he went down to another floor, off of ICU.
Mm.
And he was supposed to be going into physio like the next week.
Mm.
And so this really in some ways shouldn't have happened. He got blood poisoning.
Sepsis, maybe?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what happened.
Did you get a chance to say goodbye?
No. So what happened was in the beginning when he went into hospital, Brenda was mostly the first contact. She was there every day. And then there was myself and Judy, the older sister, who were going a couple of times a week. And then when Omicron came, my mother started to get nervous that I was going into a hospital and asked me, "Can you pull back a bit?" Well, I said, "I'm only going a day or two a week." Anyway, so I kind of had to get off the list because I couldn't meet, Brenda. There was like you could only have two people.
Right.
And
his sisters.
So yeah, so I got off the list. So I didn't see him. I did speak to him sometimes. And the last time I spoke to him was my birthday in February, 3 weeks before he passed away.
Must seem almost unreal.
It is unreal. It's very unreal, especially when when I got to the hospital, he was already gone.
Yeah.
So like I saw the body with the thing over it. And yeah, it's my father died 2 years ago. So that was like my first, so it's kind of like a double whammy for me because still grieving my dad.
Yeah, and there's also the thing of seeing a person's body and feeling like they're not there anymore. Like they've left that body, right? I don't know.
Yeah, you almost don't believe it.
Yeah,
because it's so funny how advanced we are as a society, but when it comes to death, it's still so much the unknown,
Well, we're quite death phobic. We don't want to know,
completely.
right?
Completely. And that's 100%. We're not a society that openly talks about it and, and accepts it as part of life. We kind of like push it in a deep, dark closet, which is a problem. And I read this book. Have you ever read I'm okay? It's okay.
I'm
It's
okay,
okay.
you're
You're not
okay?
okay. No, it's
Oh,
okay. You're not okay.
no, I never read that
You
one.
should read it. Megan, I can't remember her last name. And she talks about grief and how our society is completely in the dark. Like because people are afraid to face it for other
Yeah,
people. They're
yeah,
afraid
yeah.
because it hits too close to home. But after my dad died, I became obsessed with death. And then Lawrence, yeah.
There's a book
So
by
there's some families.
there's a book by Stephen Jenkinson called
Yeah,
Die Wise. And he did palliative care for 25 years in Toronto, but now runs a
yeah,
retreat center in northeastern Ontario. And he really tries to help us deal with dying. But I also remember the couple of Woody Allen quotes that
yeah.
one was, I don't want to be immortal through my work. I want to be immortal by not dying. And his other one was death. I get it. It's just not for me. Right. And I think that's kind of where we're at with that stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was, there was a whole there was a few people who went to Los Angeles and made it really
yeah,
big, like Howie Mandel and Jim Carrey, and
that's right.
from our group, and other guys who went to LA and women, Katie Ford, who did really well in Los Angeles,
Yeah,
doing different things as showrunners, as producers, as comedy
yeah,
writers. Howie Busgang, Howard Nemitz, all these guys, like they'd all started through the Yuck Yucks chain, but then they go down to
yeah,
LA and did their thing. And then there were the other, and Lou Dinos, and there were the other guys and women who stayed and tried to make a living here, which was never easy, never easy.
never. But I know that Lawrence once, just before 9/11, was going down to the States to do a gig at a club. And because of 9/11, everything got canceled.
Right.
So who
Did he
knows what could have come from that?
did he talk about
Lawrence
that?
was happy being close to home, by the way.
Yeah, I could
Lawrence
see that.
wasn't a Lawrence wasn't a bling. He was very understated. He was like didn't want bling around him. He didn't want to be like he didn't want to draw attention to himself when he was off stage.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
he always struck me as basically an introvert.
Yes, he was very much an introvert.
And
Yeah,
then as soon as the lights were on, he owned the stage. He just
it's
walked out
exactly
there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had a real love, like you said, he had a love of, retro. Like we all grew up, we were all old enough to grow up with the Ed Sullivan Show and,
Yeah.
all the comics that we watched on there. And he knew there's this Facebook page of classic American television. It's right down Lawrence's alley, like everything
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
there, all
Yeah.
the clips they
Yeah.
show. My Mother, the Car with Jerry Van Dyke. I mean, shows that.
He knows everything. He knows every show, every book. You should have seen the bookshelf we had. It took up a whole wall of videos and books, and he had everything.
Yeah,
He was very learned that way. Like he could have had a career in that actually,
he
when you
loved
think
his
about it.
craft. I mean,
He loved it. Yeah.
he was the kind of guy backstage who somebody would try out a line, and as a wordsmith, he would be on it immediately and go, no, no,
That's right. Yeah.
17, not 12. Don't use 12.
Yeah.
17's funny. It gives them time. 12's too short. And if they weren't listening, you'd go, what he said, do what he said, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
because he sometimes would host amateur night and he was very supportive because he would just go, this thing you're trying, it's not believable. You got to try it like this. I mean, you're telling people stuff and they know you're making it up. Don't make it up. Just tell people stuff that's true, and then they
And
go
that's
out
one of
there.
the things. That's one of the things, by the way, that's even on his headstone. Is he was a comic. There was
Yes.
not a gig that I went to with him where he wasn't helping another comic. Like they came off stage, maybe gave him a different way to say the line. Who
Yeah.
knows? Or in the green room, there was never a time where he wasn't helping another comic or like giving ideas. and they would go to him, and ask him,
Yeah, that's
like,
why
what do you think of this?
he was good in the writing room because he was a
Yeah,
craftsman, and
yeah,
you needed people who understood timing and rhythm and craft and wordsmithing, and he could do those things. And he seemed very content that that's what he did. It's not like,
yeah,
I should have been a dentist. He was like, this is what I am, for better or for worse, I guess.
yeah. There's nothing else he would have wanted to ever be.
But it's sad when you say to me that near the end there, he felt that it had not worked out for him and that he was a little hard done by. That's kind of sad.
Well, I don't think hard done by, but I think he expected things to be the way they were always, but things change,
Right.
you know?
Whole
Things
other
change.
generation.
Younger comics change.
Yeah.
He got older. Demographics change. You
Yeah.
just have to kind of keep up with the changes. But on the other hand, he was so busy. Like I said, he was so busy coming up with a new game show or like like a podcast. He was always doing stuff like that on the side
Yeah.
because he
Well,
liked doing that. But to be honest, he wasn't very totally on social media, wouldn't go on Facebook, wouldn't let us put anything up about him, nothing. Very private.
really?
Hmm.
Didn't want a
Yeah,
website? Nothing?
nothing.
Well, that is a
No. I tried for
generational thing, I
years.
guess. Yeah.
I tried for years.
Were you sort of his agent, basically?
No, I mean, we joked about it that I should be his agent, but I mean, I helped out for sure
Yeah, he
when,
was booster.
he also he did charities, like he did certain charities every year.
Right.
So that was fun too, right? He wrote speeches. He did speech writing for people,
Right.
for parties, which was cool too. Um, he did like a lot of different things. He wrote too, always writing. So I've kept some of his books where he wrote. He was, like you said, he was an introvert, but he's the type of guy who wouldn't hurt a fly.
Right.
But when you met him, he didn't look like that. That's
No,
saying you have
no,
to
he
get,
looked like he could crush me. That's why when he
yeah.
would pick me up and walk or carry me around, I just couldn't stop laughing. It would just be laughing, like, please put me down.
I can't believe he did that.
Oh
It's so
yeah.
funny.
Yeah. And it was my show. And he's picking me up and walking around the office going, come on, Ralphie boy, Ralph. Ralph a poo to schmoo, the Ralph, the mouth,
Yeah, yeah.
the valve. You can do this, you can do this. We're
Do
not
you
doing the bit.
would you remember Ron Vaudreuil and those guys too?
Sure, of course.
And Lou? Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we're all part of the
Yeah.
same thing. Like Ron and him and Lou, these guys, once the club opened, Norm McDonald, like once the club
Yeah.
opened,
Yeah.
guys started showing up. Some of them, like Norm and Mike McDonald, not related, were
Yeah.
Ottawa guys. Started at Howie Wagman's Yucks up there, and then they
Wait,
came
so you know
down.
Harry Wagman too?
Oh, well, yeah. Mark and I went to the same high school, and
Yeah.
no, we're all part of. That's why, when you hear about one of us passing, you realize
I
it's a
know.
very small fraternity, sorority of
It
people
really is. It
that
really
have done
is.
something almost no one will ever do. Get up on a
That's right.
stage and say, I'm funny.
Exactly.
You
It
know,
definitely takes a special person. And we had a few of his friends come to the funeral, which was nice.
I wish I could have.
So
I mean, I found
comics.
out about it after when I found out about it, I went, what? What? I was just in shock
Yeah.
because I had no idea
Yeah.
anything was
I'm
wrong.
sorry if I didn't even know that he knew
Oh,
you.
it's okay. It's okay. It's just if you don't manage to hear about it at the moment, then you miss it, right?
Yeah.
But it is definitely a club. So do you miss him? You must miss him a bit.
I do. Like I remember, when couples separate, I don't know if you've ever been separated. Um, there's a certain dynamic going on, which is why you're separating. But the
Mm.
truth is, it's weird. The things that I used to like kind of get mad at him about when something didn't go his way. Mother fucking shit. Remember, he used to go on with like 20 words. And I used to get so mad at him. And now I'm doing it. I'm like, what? Something doesn't work. I go, mother. So I'm laughing about it. And yeah, I always talk to the cats about him. I always say, Daddy loves you, and I know you miss him, and sure. I mean, even though we were separated, you know, relationships are complicated. We
Sure.
still loved each other. And I do. Like I said, like you said, he was a big presence. Just knowing he was there,
Yeah.
in the world.
What do you want people to remember about him?
How I'd say how well, besides how funny he was, I'd have to say how humble he was. Very humble about himself because he just probably didn't realize how great of the, like you said, a comedian he was and a craftsman. Which, by the way, that's a very nice compliment you said about a craftsman, because that's what he was.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So
You
it was
knew
very
there,
nice. I never heard it put that way before.
he respected the art form. It
Oh,
wasn't
100,
it
yeah.
wasn't like,
Yeah.
hey, look at me, I'm funny. It's just,
Yeah.
hey, I just built this great cabinet called a joke, right? And the drawers are
Yeah.
all moving just the way they should. And when he would nail one on stage, he wasn't swimming in, oh, look at me. He was just like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right, I got that one,
Yeah.
nailed it.
Yeah.
He liked nailing it. He didn't like, you
Yeah.
know,
You're right. He liked nailing it. And I wanted to do an anniversary for him, like for how many years he was in
mhm.
comedy, and he wouldn't let me do it. That's what I
Oh,
mean by humble. He
yeah.
wouldn't let me do it. I want to do a roast.
Oh, that would have been
So,
good.
he did a roast once, I have to tell you. I don't know if I have the video. He did a roast once I don't know who it was for. I saw like a caption of it once when we were together. He was so funny, and he was drinking. He was like much younger, and he was drinking these beers. He was so funny and so drunk. I'm going to try find it
Find
because it
it.
was hilarious. Yeah,
Post it.
hilarious. So
Post it. Have fun with
listen,
it.
he's hilarious because he lives it like Ron. I think it was Ron that said he's like a comedy caricature.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, he was
Yeah,
bigger than life. He was cartoon character,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And then he'd
yeah,
start doing the Ralph, Schmelf, Melf, Ralph, Dolph,
yeah,
Melf, Ralph.
exactly.
You're gonna want all those fries? Lawrence, get your own food. I'm just asking. We're just gonna want all the fries.
That's a perfect imitation.
Oh God, he used to make me laugh. It's just, oh, so what are you doing? What do
Are
you
you
mean? What
going
am
to
I
finish
doing?
that?
It's like, are you going to write something? It's oh, you just start writing. Well, listen, Rosalynne, it's been fantastic talking to you about him. Lawrence
Thank you
Morgenstern is
so
the
much.
man. Oh, it's
I'm
my
so happy I
pleasure.
got to meet you.
And me as well. I really wanted to share some memories about Lawrence. It's our own little Shiva, you know.
Yeah,
We,
yeah, exactly.
we get to just
It's our little Shiva memorial.
yeah, and that line is true. May his memory be a blessing. So the way to make it a
Yeah,
blessing is to share it with
that's
people,
exactly right.
right?
Yeah. And for you, thank you for doing this because it's very sweet and kind of you.
My
And I'm sure you
pleasure.
miss him in your own way too.
Oh, absolutely. The minute I heard about it, my wife had never met him, and I was just like, Lawrence Morgenstern died. And she says, who's that? I said, he was a stand-up when we were stand-ups. He was still a stand-up. He was always been a stand-up. And then I started doing impressions of him, which were completely wasted on my wife. She's just like, well, what are you talking about? I said, no, no, right? But I always did. She said, is that the guy who you always talk about who you would be eating and he'd want your food?
Yes.
And I said, yeah, that's the guy. She goes, oh,
Oh my
that
God,
guy.
that's funny.
Because years ago, I would say to her, when I was on the road, like there was this one guy, like Schuster on the road was a really hard thing to take care of to make sure he's
Yes,
kept
I'm sure.
together. Lawrence would just appear out of his hotel room, come downstairs and want your food. And then go back upstairs until it was time to go on. And that was it.
He smelt it. Yeah.
That's right.
He really loved his food. He really
Oh my
did.
God, yeah. And he
He
loved
really
anyone's
enjoyed it.
food, really. He loved everyone's food. That's the way it
That's
was.
true.
All right, Rosin, you take care of yourself.
Same to you, and take care. Good health.
Thank
And
you.
speak to you soon.
Rosalynne
Thank you
Gelade,
again.
and we've been speaking about Lawrence Morgenstern, stand-up comedian, wonderful human being, Mr. Self-Effacing, and a gentle giant, a really wonderful guy.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
has been Not That Kind of Rabbi. I'm Ralph Benmergui. I'm the host of the show. If you're interested in supporting what we do here, please think about going to patreon.com/NTKR, Not That Kind of Rabbi, NTKR. And you'll see that there's a donation page there, and you can give a little or as much as you'd like just to make sure that we keep going and find different stories to tell. In the meantime, take care of each other, and we'll see you soon on Not That Kind of Rabbi. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. A real pleasure.
You too.
Okay, bye bye.